my name is Patricia Walls, and I am a light language activator. Um, I've written 3 books on light language, and I provide light language galleries and light language immersion weekends for people so that they can learn more about the language of light and be connected with like-minded community.
What does light language mean to you?
Light language is universal source language. It's our very first language that we spoke before we went into the Tower of Babel and then came out, split, speaking different languages and going into different parts of the planet.
How'd you know to write the books?
I work with a collective of beings. Some people call them their helpers, their guides, their ancestors even, and beings off planet, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Sirians. So what I work with is a collective of those, and when I'm being guided, I don't delineate between whether it's my guides, my helpers, or off-worldly beings. I just call them the beings because they are collective and they speak to me in one voice.
Describe each book. What was the first book about?
The first book was called Galactic Frequencies of Light, and I was directed to write that book probably around 2020, and I knew that I didn't have enough material to fill a complete book, and so I invited 3 of my sisters who are also light language activators to join me in that book. And it was the other reason that I was guided to do that was because I wanted people to have more than just my understanding of what light language is. I wanted people to have other people's understandings of it, and the reason that that's important is because everybody doesn't see things in the same way, and I can describe something to you and you may not connect with it, but another person would describe it to you and you would totally understand it even if they're using the same words. And so I was directed that it was important to have 4 different understandings of what light language is and 4 different sets of examples of how it's used. That was the first book. The second book came pretty quickly. It was published May of 23, and that book I had 2 years of experience, and I had gained so much knowledge and understanding because every time that I work with light language, every time that I transmit light language, I get more information about what it is, how to use it, and I was prompted that I needed to write this new book, and the name that came was Unlocking the Mysteries of Light Language. Probably a week after that one was published, the beings told me that I needed to produce another book that was just simply a book of codes, and they specifically said 144 codes. And since light language is downloads of information, codes, and frequencies of light, that's why it's called the Book of Codes. There's probably 15 pages only of explanation for what the language of light is because they wanted the book to be mainly just codes. There's no explanation for the frequencies. There's no names for them because they wanted people to look at those frequencies and just allow them to be intuitively integrated.
Where can someone find your books?
All of my books are available on Amazon. They will be available at Barnes & Noble soon. I offer them at my events when I have an event, I always bring the books with me. And they're available on my website. So I have 3 websites: unlockingthemysteriesoflightlanguage.com, patriciawalls.net, and also earthwoman.com. And it's EARTHWOMBYN.
How does it feel to be the inspiration behind your niece's film?
Shortly after the idea came to me to write this second book, my niece talked to me about doing a film on the language of light in my work. And I had given her a list of probable names for the book, and it just so happened that we chose the same title. She chose Unlocking the Mysteries of Light Language for the title of her film, the same that I chose it for the name of my book.
What do you want people to know most about the film and the books?
The film and the books are educational, number one. Whenever everything has a frequency, everything has a vibration. And when you read a book, you are intuiting the information in it, and it is working with your genetic code. It's working with your frequency, your energetic makeup. It affects all of that. And so my hope in writing this book was, well, not my hope, but the direction was, you don't even have to open the book, you just simply have to have it. And if you have agreed to receive that information, you will. I work very strongly with the law of free will, that nothing happens that you don't agree to. And so whether or not you read the book, if you've agreed and if you have aligned yourself with the language of light, and if you have stated at some point that you would like to know more about that, if you have said, I'm writing these crazy symbols and I don't know what they are, how can I find out more information? And then you're led to the book. That's how you receive the information. If you find that you are humming or speaking gibberish or what feels like a foreign language and you don't know what it is, that's what the book's for. And that's what this film is for. And that's what my light language galleries are for. It's to provide information to people who are either transmitting the language of light or who are wondering about it for some reason. Maybe they're having dreams about it and they don't know what the dreams are. But the book is meant to be educational, and it's also an activator. Whenever you receive the language of light, if you are in agreement to it, then you are activated. And by activated, what I mean is that you have opened your channel to be able to transmit the language of light.
What do you say to somebody who really doubts themselves and says, oh, mine doesn't sound like yours, I'm not doing it?
There are a lot of explanations in the book. I get a lot of questions from people wondering if they're really speaking the language of light because they've heard another person and they don't sound like that person. There's an explanation in the book because most everything that I do is channeled. I ask the beings for explanations for different things. And I had asked the beings, why is it that my light language sounds different from someone else's? And the answer that they gave me was, they reminded me about the Tower of Babel. And that when we went in, we were all speaking the same language, the universal source language. And when we came out, we were all speaking different languages. And so there was the French, there was the English, there was the Spanish and the Vietnamese and the Chinese and the Japanese and so on and so forth. And so when I had asked the beings of light, when I'm transmitting sometimes I sound different from one transmission to the next. And why is that? And the explanation that they gave me was that when I'm transmitting for another person, place, or thing, I am sequencing myself with their frequencies and what their needs are, and I'm channeling whatever piece of the language of light that they need. And the reason that we don't speak the one source language anymore is because we simply, in our third dimensional body, can't hold that much frequency, because the one source language is so high in frequency. And so we are still, even when we are channeling the language of light, we're still not channeling the fullness of it. We're only channeling a portion of it, a fraction of it. And so people will never sound like me. I've never known two people to sound exactly the same when they're channeling the language of light, because you're still only channeling that fraction of it that's required at that moment.
How different would the world be if everyone would be open to light language?
If everyone were open to light language, how would the world be? There's that question out there, whether or not it would save the world, and the answer is no, because we come here as human beings in order to experience, and we have to have the contrast of the good and the bad. I would love to think that the language of light would save the world, but I can't see that, because that would negate the purpose of being here. I do hope that more people will become open to it, because the more that we raise our frequency and light language, because it is a fraction of the one source language, whenever you are transmitting it, you are increasing your quota of light, your light frequency. And so the more people that transmit the language of light, the greater the collective consciousness rises in frequency. That will make a difference in humanity and what happens in the world, but there's always going to be a contrast.
What do you say to a naysayer or a heckler?
I gave a talk tonight at a conference on the language of light, and I had a naysayer, a heckler, and he was very challenging, but he was also right about some things. And one of the reasons that I love doing those talks, and people have heard me say this before, the presentation is channeled. It's not coming from me particularly. And so I learn as much as the audience does. Whenever someone asks me a question, negative or not, when they ask me a question, it prompts me to ask the beings for the answer of that. And so, although this person that I had tonight seemed to be negative, he did prompt me to get more clear and more understanding by asking the beings, okay, what is the answer to his question? How do I answer this person who is challenging what I know? And so it turned out fine. I don't enjoy being challenged, but it is educational for me as much as for everybody else, because I don't believe that I know everything. And I don't want to come across with people portraying that I think I know everything when I don't. None of us know everything. We're all still learning. That's why we're here at this particular time.
What's next for you?
What's next for me is more expansion, always more expansion, more learning, more remembering. And whenever I say more learning, we already know all of this. We're just remembering what we already know. And the more that I dive into the language of light, the more that I experience it, the more that I transmit it, the more that I share it and listen to others transmitting it, my own frequency rises in quota, my own light expands, and I gain more knowledge. I have been told by the beings that I need to speak more about galactic human beings and the fact that human beings are galactic earth beings, and to try and get people to realize that and not focus so much on the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, and the otherworldly beings, the off-planet beings, but instead to realize that we are here on this planet Earth at this time, and that we are also star people, because planet Earth is another star in the solar system, another planet in the solar system. So those planets are not separate from us. They're not better from us. We are one of them.
Tell us about your light language immersion weekends.
I host light language immersion weekends. Sometimes they're only a Saturday to be convenient for people who can't attend a full weekend because they have family obligations or work obligations. So I host Saturday and sometimes full weekend immersion weekends. The reason I do that is because I want people to have the full immersion. I don't want them to come for a 2-hour light language gallery and only get a little bit of information, just enough to give them a sense of peace about what it is that they're doing. In the full light language immersion, that is all we concentrate on. There are numerous transmissions that occur. There are private transmissions that occur. And I partner with Sharon Varner, who is an amazing sound healer, and she provides the sound healing portion and also